Let's kick off with the commodity prices and the rally that we're seeing. Perhaps appropriate to start with oil, which is now trading over $80 a barrel. Johan, can you give us an update on what's happening on this front?
Yes, most certainly. Oil, I think, is doing exactly what we said it would. You know, the good news that came out of China yesterday, obviously impetus, the Chinese commitment to their economic stimulus package. Good news out of the US. So generally optimism. We see two things in the oil market, interesting enough. If you look at prices for the past year, oil has been 19 days above $80 and only 1 day below 70. So we think from a price point of view, you know, it's quite clear that the push is upwards and the sentiment is upwards as well.
Well, this brings us swiftly to Sasol and the news out of late that the Competition Commission wants to fine Sasol and 7 other players in the oil-producing environment 10% of their total revenue for cartel-like behavior in bitumen. Now, I'm sure that Pat Davies, the CEO of Sasol, thought that all the competition trouble was behind him. What do you make of this? Is it going to impact Sasol? If we look at Sasol's performance today, we are down, we're in line with the market, down slightly at 284 Rand.
I must be honest, Bronwyn, it actually kind of upsets me to see news like that out on Sasol. But obviously you've got that overhang on Sasol at the moment. And we're sitting in an environment where in the last sort of week and a bit, we've seen such a strong rand and we've seen it run up to these levels that we're seeing at about 745 or the level that we're seeing at the moment. And that's also going to help to also counteract the positive movement on a share like Sasol. So, yeah, again, you know, it just kind of upsets me to see data out like that. But, you know, looking forward, you've got to say, well, at some point you've got to look at buying it. And, you know, once this is all dead and buried, thank goodness it's out in the market. Let it filter its way through the share price and then you can look to get involved in the stock.
Ultimately, once all the competition issues and the fines have worked their way through the system, do you have a valuation on Sasol, or is it too early to tell where the stock could potentially go?
For me, I must be honest, it's too early to tell. I think at this stage, you've just got to let water find its own level, let the competition issues filter through the stock price and then look forward from there and then build in, obviously, the forecasts on the rand and where we see the oil price going from here.
Platinum at $1,584 an ounce a short while ago, up $5.50. We're going to continue to see this positive momentum, or are we going to just be at the mercy of the US dollar, and any direction in the US dollar is going to dictate where we see commodity prices going, obviously given the fact that we see these commodity prices trading in dollars?
Yes, well, as we know, the USD is a big factor in commodities, but more so in some than others, most certainly in gold. You know, gold is more like a currency. Base metals much more fundamentally driven, and platinum sort of in between. So platinum, you are going to see the impact of any positive news filter through, push the price up, and you're going to see fluctuations with the news as it changes from day to day. And the dollar having an impact as well, but possibly not as strong as in gold.
Have we found a new base on the platinum price given the ETFs that were launched in the US now a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I think one did. I mean, obviously it's a reality, it's there, you know, and it wasn't there before. So clearly it is a new interest. And there has been, I think, you know, demand for that in the past coming forward to where we are now. So yeah, there's most certainly a, you know, an additional factor that plays onto the price.
Talk to me about platinum stocks and what you think is happening on that front. They are pricing in by a number of market commentators standards a oil price of, a platinum price of around about $1,700 an ounce.
It gives me a sense of comfort that we sit in a commodity environment where commodities seem to me that they're in a normalized environment, and a sense of stability, like you mentioned earlier, is coming back into that sort of commodity environment. So when looking at your commodity-driven shares, you know, it gives me a great sense of comfort to actually go in and start looking at long-term buying into them. The likes of Impala are one of my top picks at the moment. I do like them. Amplat's doing their rights issue at the moment. But, you know, within those two blue chips, you know, Impala really stands out for me. And
even though it's expensive at current valuations?
Well, if you look at all valuations at the moment, all valuations are expensive. And as you were discussing earlier, markets look forward in nature. So we wait for the next set of results. And again, working off a low base. So if we start to see earnings start to kick up from the levels that we're seeing at the moment, the share prices are going to tell you that before it happens.
I don't want to be negative on commodities, and I'm just sharing the view of those that detract from the commodity bull run story. And coming back to the fact that this is all inventory rebuild, particularly in China, that we've seen commodity prices artificially inflated to these levels, and that it all could come back quite dramatically.
Well, I would not agree with that. What I would agree with is, yeah, there is a question around China. China has been the driver up to now, whereas the rest is expectation, you know, and positivism. And especially in base metals, we haven't really seen any real demand specifically coming through. We see signs of it, like, you know, consecutive days of stock draws on the LME, that sort of thing, but not real demand coming through. So we're still waiting for that. So, the question is, do you believe that it's going to happen? We think it will. When will it happen? How quickly? I think there's uncertainty around that.
Let's chat quickly about Metorex, that company out with results, and headline earnings per share were down 71%, but the stock rallied 9% after the results were released, and then rallied a further 15% after that. The market likes these results. The company is completely restructured. It doesn't resemble the stock that was trading at 24.70, 24.50 before it went down, did the rights issue. At around about 5 Rand on Metorex, where are we going with this one, considering that their debt is down some 29%. They are sitting with 1.5 billion rand of debt on balance sheet, but they've also extricated themselves from South Africa, so they're now no longer a South African player, and they aren't being impacted by the stronger rand.
Metorex is a stock that I've actually followed quite closely, and I followed it before the bull run, way back when it was at under 2 Rand a share, all the way up to those levels that you mentioned at 24 Rand. And we saw that huge pullback to the levels of 3 Rand and sub that. But, you know, the retracement that you saw there was a classic case of not managing your gearing. And as you said, their debt structuring in their balance sheet was not managed. And, you know, that was a great concern going into a financial crisis. It completely snowballed. And now they find themselves in a situation. What do you have to do? You've got to pay off your debt first. So that's what they're doing, and they are restructuring that balance sheet, and it is giving a sense of comfort to a lot of investors. But I need to reiterate, a stock like Metorex is something that a lot of speculators try to get in and try to make a quick buck. So, you know, you can look at valuations, but when a stock like Metorex gets momentum, like you said, it can do 10-15% in a day. In terms of seeing it at 5 Rand, whether I'd be buying it, I think it's a little bit stretched in the short term. I'd probably look closer to that 4 Rand 20 level. But again, it's going to be a function of the copper price going forward. And we know what copper price has done over the short term. So maybe wait for a little bit of pullback in the copper price as well.